60 seconds to comply.
I think you'd better do what he says, Mr. Kenny.
You have 60 seconds to comply. This is minute 19.
Part man.
Part machine. All pod. This minute begins with a shot of Murphy descending stairs and ends with Murphy grabbing a meal. Not a meal, but e-meal. Yeah.
Emil. M-I-E-L.
And
The punk dude with the weird haircut and the face.
You know the one.
Yeah, we know the one. Goopy guy.
The man who somehow has a receding hairline that is centrally parted. I have never seen that before in my life, and I am, frankly, fascinated.
Maybe he's a kid of the 90s and he's just got the extreme widow's peak.
Ah, yes. Doing the Bruce Willis. That's clearly what's going on here.
Oh, I hope he's not doing a Bruce Willis, because he's basically turned out to be like an anti-masking dick.
I'm shocked. I'm not. I'm really not.
He has turned into peak grumpy old man at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. Like, he saw Harrison Ford doing his thing. It's like, no, hold my beer.
He can't even spend the entire time in a movie set anymore. But we're not talking about Bruce Willis. We're talking about other evil men. Sorry.
I know, you'd think we would have gotten our tangents out of our system, because before this episode we talked about nothing but Knight Rider for fucking 30 minutes, because...
Yep.
Because.
Of course we do. I do like how this opens up with the conversation between Dougie and Emil. I've actually written down the entire conversation.
It's quite an interesting one.
It is really cool, because again, it's like, you know, anyone who says like movies like this have no context or subtext or meaning or anything like that, they literally talk about the capitalism of drug running.
Yeah, so none of this dialogue's ever wasted, because a scene like this, you could just have them talking about anything. It's just noise. They don't really need to be saying anything of substance, but no, it's world building.
Well, what I love about this is that this does not exist in the novelization, so we have to fairly safe to assume that this was Verhoeven, or, you know, a script revision, but I'd probably say it's probably more Verhoeven. It probably fits more in the theme of, you know, corporatism, capitalism. Shall I go through it? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, so we go Dougie. Rob a bank, but we never get to keep the money. Emil. You need money to make money. We steal the money to make coke, sell the coke to make even more money. Capitalism, man. Dougie. Yeah, but why bother making it when we can just steal it? Emil. No better way to steal money than free enterprise. Smoke? Dougie. Nah, those things will kill you.
And then he says, do you want to live forever? Which, very topical.
And then Dougie dies.
Yeah, well, he actually didn't reply to that question, but I guess it would be a little bit on the nose, like, do you want to live forever? Yeah, sure. I was like, oh, yeah, dead.
So I did actually a little bit of digging on Dougie, because, you know, I figured this is literally the only time we're actually ever going to see Dougie in this movie, because he literally dies.
Yeah, because I was watching him in this minute going, have I seen this guy before? I don't even know if I have.
You probably have, because he's actually a stunt guy.
Oh.
So I'm looking at his IMDb now. He hasn't worked since production hasn't come out since 2009, but he's got 115 stunt credits to his name. I admit I was mostly trying to look for a Star Trek connection.
Of course.
But yeah, this guy's done like a ton of westerns. His credits go all the way back to 1952. Yeah, he's got a ton of stuff. Yeah, a lot of westerns. And yeah, you know, you probably can't see it looking in like this grey jumper and all that, but yeah, you look at his IMDb and he's got a cowboy hat and all that, and yeah, he just screams cowboy.
Do you think we're going to go back to a Western phase? Are we going to have a revival of that?
People have been trying to do revivals. There's one big problem with the Western as a cultural artifact is that, well, let's just put it this way. The classic Western was built on a lie.
Yes, true. And then there's the revisionist Western, which is still questionable by today's standards. But yeah, because I think the superhero thing, I think we're reaching a breaking point. A lot of people find they're too oversaturated with it and aren't interested in the next phase of Marvel, for example. So
everyone, okay, I'm going to try and debunk that as much as closely as possible, because people have been saying that for about 5 years.
Yeah. But eventually it does have to end.
Yes.
So what's coming after that? Do you think we're going to go through a disco revival? Is it going to be
Well, fashions tend to be cyclic, like every it's usually 2, 3, or 4 decades cycles. I'm trying to remember which one it is. The problem with the Western is that because a lot of people's cultural upbringing...
Well, fashion's only 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Because the Western was this kind of revisionist whitewashing of history. And as more and more things come out about the real history, especially now, like, you look at how Americans have treated the Native Indians and how they were kind of this big bad man and rah, rah, rah. And I don't think we're going to see that happen. We're probably going to see a shift away from superheroes because trends happen, but sometimes these things do take years. And the thing is, we've had superhero movies near constantly for 30 decades.
Yeah.
30 decades? 3 decades. 30 years. Remember, Batman...
Yeah, my brain auto-corrected because it didn't sound right, so I was like, oh, you must mean 30, yeah.
My brain was going, Batman was 1989.
Yeah.
And while there's been years we've had no superhero movies, because, Batman was kind of a one-off of the era.
Yeah.
But Batman and Robin killed the superhero movie. But it wasn't like less than 2 years later, we got X-Men, or even Blade before that. And then it was a few years before another Batman movie. And we've had pretty much a superhero movie every year since. And it took a lot of misfires with Marvel. But the last 10 years have been nothing but hits. I think the only Marvel movie where we're going to see a potential flop is maybe Eternals.
Well, Mandalorian is a Western. The Witcher
yeah, but that's
is a
also
Western.
space Western. That's folding it into...
Let me finish my fucking thought, bitch. So, The Mandalorian is a Western. The Witcher is a Western. So I think what we're going to get is some kind of hybrid where you've got a genre story, but it's basically some single dad in the gig economy looking for work from episode to episode.
Let's not forget that the original wagon train to the stars was Star Trek.
Well, shit. It's exactly what I was hoping to spare you from.
Yeah.
And I wasn't deliberately crowbar. Oh, okay, yes, I was deliberately crowbarring it in. But it is true that Star Trek was pitched as Wagon Train to the Stars because Roddenberry knew that the biggest TV show at the time was Wagon Train. It's a show about the Western expansion of the USA, and he was trying to relate that to say, it's just the Western expansion of the USA, but in space.
Yeah.
So yes, Star Wars copied Star Trek. Booyah!
I would really love to know what the next trend is, because Cyberpunk has made a bit of a revival lately, but a lot of critics are just saying it's that neon liberalism where it doesn't have the tooth, it doesn't have the bite of original Cyberpunk. This is just all of the facade with none of the substance. So I don't think that's really going to take off in a way they're hoping it will.
I guess it's one of those things we won't see what the next big thing is until it becomes the next big thing. I'm not trying to sound like,
Could be totally out of left field, because what I hear teenagers talking about now, I'm just like, what the fuck? I don't even understand any sentence that came out of your mouth, child. Like, I'm friends with, she's 20, she just turned 20, and it's like another language where she's like, oh yeah, this is my cryptid dad aesthetic. I'm like, oh, what is that? Is that a reference to something?
I remember that time.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh no, I was just joking, man. But what does it mean? I don't know, it just sounded funny. Oh, okay. What's the kids?
Yeah, I remember having that realization. Oh, it must have been about 2009. And I was coming home from uni on the train, and I hadn't been on public transport for a while because I've been working and shit like that, and my exposure to teenagers had been quite minimal. And it was like listening to a bunch of kids speaking a foreign language, but somehow it's English. And I was just like, what the shit is going on here? And that was one of the first times I felt old.
Yeah, it's nice to finally be confident in the fact that I'm a grown adult.
Oh, I don't want to be grown adult. I want to go back to being a kid.
I never liked being a kid.
Adulting sucks.
I like being an adult. I'm so ready. I was thinking about this morning. It's not the fact that I feel old. It's that our society puts so much stock in what the kids are into, and knowing what the kids are into is equivalent to being with it. But it's just like, I know a lot about culture and history and fashion and all of that. I just don't give a shit what anyone under 20 thinks or feels.
No, I'm just going to include the drop of Abe Simpson doing the
I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
I used to be with it.
But then they changed what it was. Yeah.
The thing is, people always miss out the last part of that. It will happen to you.
Yeah. So they're watching TV, the Emil and, and Dougie.
It's not my problem.
It's not my problem. Yes, this is the first time we've seen that.
It is the first time we've seen it in this movie, and here's the irony: is that it's not in the book, at least not in this part of the book. The main character of the TV show, Bixby Snyder, is never mentioned. The name of the show is never mentioned, so people only just know this by the tag phrase, "I'll buy that for $1."
Right. So where do those names come from?
I have no idea.
Novelization?
I got the wiki up for...
Yeah, I was looking at that page. There's nothing on it except for, in a deleted scene from the first film, it is revealed that Snyder has been convicted of exchanging job security on his show for sexual favors from underage co-stars.
Yeah, that was going to be the revelation of the epilogue at the end of the film.
Yeah, in the unproduced script for RoboCop 2, The Corporate Wars, Snyder has become the President of the United States 25 years after the events of the first film.
I wonder if that was a slight jab at Trump, because that's a thing, literally.
Well, yeah, well, retroactively,
I'd highly recommend going and watching Cody Johnson's Some More News, the movie, where it's essentially like a 90-minute rant about Trump and all his depictions in media, including references to RoboCop, so this does make sense.
Nice.
And also... the Some More News is brilliant.
I do love the story within a story trope, and I think I did mention... I do so many movies by minute podcasts, but I think I did mention on this one.
No, you have mentioned this.
Good,
and
yeah.
I totally agree.
And It's Not My Problem... I mean, just the title alone tells you everything you need to know about the society and its values. Yeah. And Twin Peaks also does a similar thing. I've been watching Twin Peaks lately. Finally getting on that train. I love me some David Lynch, turns out. But yeah, theirs is Invitation to Love, which is kind of playing on some themes from the rest of the show. Hard to say, because it's David Lynch, so I don't know what's going on at any time. Actually, I will say Twin Peaks is about as normal as a David Lynch production gets.
I haven't watched much David Lynch, but yeah, it's like, a part of me is always going, do I have to be sober, or even with LSD, does this not make sense?
You know what, it's a really comforting place to be. That's what I found is Twin Peaks episodes, they only go for 45 minutes. You'd think they go for 2 hours, but it kind of feels like you've been sitting in a really nice, plush bar, you know, with the velvet seats and the red curtains, and you're just like, this is nice, and I like everyone here. It's great.
Yeah, because I think the first time I watched that was when it was first run on Australian TV, so I was in my early teens, because that would have been about, 1991, 92 or something strange like that.
91, yeah, a year before I was born.
Yeah, so I was just like either in primary or just out of primary when that finally aired over here. So I tried to watch the first episode and I was just bored senseless.
Yeah, that would not... I tried watching it when I was about 22 and I wasn't even ready for it then.
Yeah, I probably would love to sit down and watch it.
I kind of want to get someone from the RoboCop wiki to be on our show because I want to know... Why are you doing this? What does that take? Because I think that would be the meeting of the most anally retentive people on the face of the fucking earth. Because it's like, okay, we run a wiki where we talk about every minute detail of this movie, and us over here, we're like, oh, well, hold my beer.
We're just going to reference this
because we talk about the movie in a podcast minute by minute. So, yeah.
I must admit, as much as of a pedantic nerd I can be, I've never edited a wiki. I'd never created I had to create a wiki for my game design unit in uni, but...
Oh. Have I told you this story the one time I edited a wiki?
Oh no. Oh jeez.
I went on the DC wiki, and under Batman, under superpowers, it says no superpowers, but then I wrote being rich, and it was
I don't care if that's ruined the audio. Fuck yes. And Zack Snyder backs you up on that.
It was up there for all of a little over an hour before someone edited it and banned me. So.
Aww, sports.
Fuck you guys. My friend Steph, she writes very good Star Wars fan fictions, mostly focusing on after the original trilogy, mostly focusing on Leia. Mm-hmm. And she has this really amazing, elaborate backstory about old Iranian culture, and like there's these green earrings that are handed down from generation to generation. So she wrote a little bit about these green earrings. She put it in the wiki if you want to see how long it lasted. She got it to stay there for about 8 hours, so she beat me by a wide margin. But I think it's because it sounded so convincing, and it was such minutia that I bet someone on the other side of the world was violently flipping through all their Star Wars. I don't know where this came from. What is this?
And that says a lot, because I've read Wikipedia articles and they just rabbit on about bullshit so much.
Wikis need to be more direct and to the point. So I'll give the RoboCop guys credit. They don't fuck around. I mean, there's not a lot of lore to mess around with, but like something like the Transformers wiki. Today I was like, hang on, was Barricade the same vehicle they used in the Knight Rider third or fourth fucking reboot? Turns out it's not. But it took me so long because I went, let's look on the Transformers wiki, it'll tell me what his alt mode is. No. It's like buried all the way down the bottom. I need to know. Most normal people who aren't, in love with Transformers just want to know the nerdy car stuff. That's all we need to know.
Every single time I go on TF Wiki, I just skim the articles, but I read the captions under the pictures because they are
hilarious.
Gold.
Oh, they are. Yes,
absolute gold.
Good work, guys. So anyway, that's our review of Wikipedia communities.
So anyone who's doing the 60 seconds to comply Wikipedia,
I will have made it.
Drag it out as long as possible.
My let's see, what grade? My ninth grade teacher laughed at me when I said, you know what? I'd be pretty happy with just a wiki page. Like, not a wiki page I made, but that I had done something that someone actually felt the need to write about and record me. Like, I meant something to someone. That was my point. But I guess this is way back in the mid 2000s. And she's like, why would that matter? But I think it does.
It's funny because when I started going into uni, it was not the birth of Wikipedia. Wiki had been around for a while, but in regards to academia, wiki was a no word. But I met a teacher, and I'm fresh in uni, and I'm like, believing a lot of that bullshit. And, she's like going, no, Wikipedia is a good resource, and we should be able to reference it. And part of me's like going, the problem with Wikipedia is that it can be edited by anyone, which is always the problem. People can just vandalize it. At the same time, it is actually more accurate than most encyclopedias ever, because it does get corrected. I think in regards to academia, I think it's a very useful tool, even if it's just like, okay, you can't directly quote wiki, but you can use wiki to get information to lead you to other sources, and I think it's an incredibly good tool.
Well, it's more democratic, I think.
You're saying that about Wikipedia. I don't think I've ever really wanted a Wikipedia page, but I always held this as a standard. I'm glad I ended up on TV, but not on Crime Stoppers.
Yep. That's what you want.
I've appeared on TV a couple of times in costume, but it's always been that thing where I'm like, I am so glad, considering my area where I grew up, and like my high school was referred to as Balga by the Sea. I'm thinking, so many people I know would probably end up on Crime Stoppers.
They still have Crime Stoppers.
I think so.
It's a long time since I watched free-to-air TV.
I just remember the one bit of trivia. So I was talking about, because I think this is pretty funny. So I was talking about Neil Summers, because I was reading his bio, and IMDb says he's married to Karen Summers. I mean, that name sounds familiar. Unfortunately, I got the wrong person, unless, he married someone 20 years younger.
Well, has happened before.
Because there was a porn star called Karen Summer.
Oh, right.
I was like, he did not. Come on. And I don't think it's the same person.
No. But I think the most significant thing in this minute is that Murphy says, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me."
Yes.
And that's very important. I feel like we need to point that out. And it's a dope line.
It's one of the lines, and it's more importantly, it is the line that triggers Emil how many minutes into the future? Many minutes into the future. It is such a cool line. He literally just caps a guy, and it's just like, yeah, just, your choice.
So, does that come from TJ Laser as well? I'm just wondering.
You know what? I'm going to rule that it is, because that feels like such a TJ Laser thing.
I feel like Murphy was actually a huge nerd before he became RoboCop. I mean, he's still a huge nerd as RoboCop, to be honest.
Oh, sorry. I just opened up the IMDb page for SD Nemeth, who played Bixby Snyder. He appeared in RoboCop 3, and I have zero recollection that happening.
I have zero recollection of RoboCop 3 happening. What are you talking about? They stopped making RoboCop movies after the second one. We've agreed upon this.
I must have been on shrooms when I was a teenager and I saw that fictitious movie in the
yes.
Piccadilly Arcade, because that was the only place that was showing it.
Wow. That's a real trip back in time. I'm just appreciating the aesthetics, the cinematography of both of these minutes. So both for the original RoboCop and the remake, just the contrast and just the vibe they give off. This is cool and grungy, and then in our gaslighting RoboCop segment, it's very clean, and there's something appealing about both, though. Like I find myself today when I was watching those clips back to back going, I kind of like both. They both have their appeal.
Well, before we get to gaslighting, I do have some commentary notes.
Yes.
And because this is a regular thing, Ed is quoted as, when he's talking about, "That's not my problem," it's kind of like the future of entertainment.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure he's wrong, given reality TV. Oh, Verhoeven actually, in this minute, he also explains why they shot in Long Beach. And essentially, they had finished filming in Pittsburgh, and they were over time, and I think I brought this up before, he deliberately didn't film. The one scene they literally could not cut is Murphy's death scene. And they were running out of money, so it's just like, we're not shooting this. And when Orion basically turned around and went, okay, where's this one scene? It's like, sorry, we ran out of money and time. And that was the way they got the extra time and money to film it, but they had to film it in Long Beach.
Right.
The one thing I was going to bring up from the book, though, is essentially this scene is condensed down to half a page. But what's really funny is because they don't have that dialogue, I'll just read from here. Dougie and Emil continued to smoke their joint. Dougie enjoyed toking up, but Emil, he had problems. Paranoia. He felt uneasy about everything when he was wrecked. He saw shadows, heard sounds, felt like people are watching him. Like, now, for instance. He stared at the figure of a cop, pistol drawn, standing not 6 feet away from him. He glanced at the joint in his hand. This was some good stuff! There's some other stuff, but it's just like, I'm kind of, I like the scene shot it is, but I like the idea that, like, these guys are toking up after a bank robbery and are chasing the cops. There's a cop turn up and they're just like, man, I'm fucking tripping.
I'm looking at this shot from the last few seconds. It's 57 seconds in, if you will. It's just such a blow. It's just the screen of the TV. There's a bullet hole in it. There's a dead guy there. There's some look like nudie mags on the ground, newspapers, and it's just and this dude sitting on the couch while Murphy approaches, and it's just and the chains hanging down from this. Like everything about it is just love it. It's telling a story. It's almost cartoonish.
It's great, and it's so just looking at it like now. It's like so basically Murphy is almost standing out of the environment where like Emil and Dougie, well especially now Dougie is kind of blending in, like they're wearing greys and the blacks.
Isn't that interesting? You know, Murphy's wearing the darkest colors, and yet that blue, that navy blue stands out because there aren't very many other blue elements in this shot. It's all warm colors.
Well, he's standing on a blue magazine, but I don't think that counts.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But also your eyes are directed to that side of the screen anyway.
Oh yeah, it's got a great directionality. Like, you're basically from, the classic, top left, bottom right, and you essentially got a diagonal slice through Emil to Murphy. It's almost like these people knew what they were doing.
Yeah. I'm definitely focusing way more on visual storytelling since doing Movies by Minute, but especially, I think we do need a Miami Vice, we got a Knight Rider drop.
You look like crap.
Fuck you, kid!
I really enjoy watching Knight Rider and Miami Vice specifically back to back because of just the cultural contrast. The same few years these two shows came out, but just couldn't be on more different ends of the spectrum. And why I mention Miami Vice specifically is just the way they frame things, the visual storytelling. Holy shit. Even on television today, you aren't getting people getting creative like that. There's a lot of shots where it's just, overhead shot, reverse overhead shot, back and forth, nothing interesting. No.
It's very weird when you've actually got some great directorial storytellers in TV. Like, we're both fans of Greatest Gen, and we pretty much modeled the show off that.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
And I'm going to crowbar this in, not because it's Star Trek.
Well, shit. It's exactly what I was hoping to spare you from.
But finally finished watching Disco Season 3, because it's literally just finished as of recording last week.
Does Frakes direct episodes of that, or...?
He directs the second to last episode that I know of. I think he directed one of the first episodes. I can't recall off the top of my head. But what I loved about the episode he was directing Die Hard in space. And there's like cool things happening. There's like tight spots. There's Dutch angles. And there's this really great... I thought the episode was pretty shit-tacular to begin with because I can't fucking stand Michael Burnham. But from the visual storytelling, I thought it was a really impressive episode, and I just wish it had less Michael Burnham.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is you can really elevate the material just by execution, and sometimes that's all you really need. But yeah, there's an opening, so this is Season 1, Episode 6, Calderon's Demise. The opening scene starts off really bizarre. It's a guy, you just see the side of his face. He's holding a glass in front of his face, and he's shaking, and it's like, what the hell is going on? And then water starts pouring, well, you don't know what it is, but water's pouring in, and you're just like, what is going on? And he goes to drink it, and it gets smacked out of his hand. You're, oh, okay, so they're interrogating him and trying to put him on edge and all of that. So you slowly revealing information, and just the whole sequence is... the way you have three characters having a conversation and playing around with foreground, background. Oh, and you don't even see Tubbs' face. It's just this guy on a profile. And he's holding up the photos. It's like, do you know this woman? Do you know this woman? But it's like, to us. No one's looking at those photos. It's just, it's artsy. It's weird. I love it.
No, it's a funny thing about it in retrospect, how much like a show like Miami Vice... well, probably not, I would say is culturally aged, as in the sense that you don't really get, like, Miami Vice conventions. I mean, Don Johnson is probably the thing that most people remember about that show, which is a bit of a shame.
It's surprising, Knight Rider, I guess if it's science fiction, it's easier to remember, so Knight Rider, the talking car, you've got that. Whereas, Miami Vice...
Hasselhoff is a personality in and of himself that just
and then some, out. Yeah. But what I think Miami Vice has a lasting influence, or like GTA, Vice City.
I was just about to say that. I think the aesthetics of the show and the
music...
presentation of the show has out-survived the show itself.
Yes. Whereas most people my age or younger wouldn't know what that's referencing or where those trends originated. So,
the first time I played Vice City was just like, oh god, I'm playing a Miami Vice game. It's just the bright colors, the costumes, the slick cars. I mean, the fact that it was set in 1980s Florida. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, well, was there a Ferrari Testarossa?
Well, there wouldn't be a Ferrari Testarossa because it didn't use trademark cars, but I'm sure if I just visited the Grand Theft Auto wiki, I'd find the in-game equivalent. Yeah, it had all sorts of the sports cars.
Phil Collins, did they play Phil Collins?
You spend like the first mission on a moped because you need to find a car, and that's the first thing that's available, and you just need to get and do it.
Oh, yeah, so RoboCop. In terms of visual storytelling, I think we're starting to get more interesting framing and stuff, and that will continue, especially when he's being converted into RoboCop. But having come off... I'm still doing Alien Covenant, but having completed Prometheus, can't believe I'm saying that, I was quite
RSVP.
Surprised. Yes. Congratulations and RSVP. But yeah, I was so surprised that Ridley Scott plays it very safe with how he frames shots. He doesn't do anything unusual or experimental. It is quite basic. I think it's cinematography in other aspects that make his films quite unique. So Dariusz Wolski is the cinematographer. So I guess maybe that's him. That's his influence coming in rather than Ridley himself.
Cinematographers, usually will have a style. Every movie is its own unique piece. But yeah, if you've got a director and a cinematographer who have collaborated for many years, you can that basically you can't separate them in regards when you're talking about style because they're both working with each other. When I was watching Fargo, and it's like the first name it pops up is cinematography by Roger Deakins. Oh, it's not the first name, but when it pops up, and it's just like, oh, this is going to be a well-shot movie regardless of anything. And I think Coen Brothers, I enjoy their films, the ones I've seen, but it's not... Cinematography has always never been like things where I'm like going, wow, that shot on The Big Lebowski is brilliant. I mean, yeah, it's got some fun stuff, but then you see what Roger Deakins is pulling out in Fargo, and it's just like, whoa, this is so good.
Yeah, just they're doing things you wouldn't even think to do. That's the ones I love, where I go, oh, wow, yeah, that is... like that scene in Miami Vice that I am just... I've been thinking about it all frickin' day. I watched it last night, and I just went, and then they did this, and then they played with the depth of field, and the foreground and the background, and it was just, so efficient, so brilliant, and yeah.
And it's a thing that never usually happens in TV, even.
Especially back then. And so the whole day I'm just going... I don't know anyone who watches this show because I'm watching a show that's 40 goddamn years old, and that's the one downside of being a time traveler.
I barely watched it when I was that young.
Yeah, no, it's great. It amazes me that it isn't remembered more beyond the name and Don Johnson and the fashion. Shall we move on to Gaslighting RoboCop?
Alex, how do you feel?
I feel fine, Dr. Norton.
Do we have to... Okay, this minute's not so bad.
We're legally required. Yeah, it's a nice scene. So this minute begins with a close-up on the Robo Hands Man, if you will. Begins with Robo Hands Man, there we go, playing guitar.
Is it Hans Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer.
Blam!
Yes. And ends with Norton, not Morton, saying, "We agreed on this a long time ago, Raymond." So, yeah.
My one line is music. That thing that is never affected by emotion.
Yes, so I've got a lot to say about that. In the last minute, we were talking... in the last episode. It gets confusing when we're doing two...
I still call it the last minute.
Yeah, because we're reviewing 2 minutes here, so it gets... Yeah. The last episode, we're talking about how... You especially were saying it would be nice if we saw the technology. It took a lot of effort to adjust to, recovery, rehabilitation. It's got to take a long time for there to be a connection between brain and new limb.
Exactly.
However, that doesn't seem to be the case here. What they posit, if you will, is that it's only emotions that are getting in your way. And, okay, Norton says, you can't let your emotions get the better of you because it's going to make it harder for you to control your limbs. Okay, fair enough. But then the guy's like, I need my emotions to play. Fuck off. He wasn't saying don't feel nothing, dickhead. He just said don't panic. And that's the thing, is most musicians, for exams especially, will be taking beta blockers. They are the biggest abusers of non-prescription beta blockers.
I beg to differ. I think a lot of musicians were on meth.
All that. But yeah, no... getting nervous or
meth,
stressed.
LSD, cocaine,
Dixies. Okay, there's a difference between, orchestra musicians and rock stars. Very big divide.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, but I just love the idea of some small woman with a giant cello smashing it on stage.
Kurt Cobaining it, yes!
Yes. An oboe that says, "This instrument kills fascists." Okay, I'm done. Getting back
I want that so badly. It does seem like there is a good idea behind this. I know the reason why this exists within this movie, but the whole idea that essentially
it's thematic.
Emotions change brain chemistry.
Yeah, so I get okay, we don't want you to get nervous and stressed, but you don't. Come on,
but any emotion
in the dialogue. You don't have to be that specific, but you also don't have to be a dumbass like this. But they are obviously trying to. As someone with emotional analgesia, this kind of stuff pisses me off. But it's just that idea of I can't be creative because I don't feel anything. You can. You absolutely can create things just using your brain. There are other parts of your brain other than emotions. Funny enough.
Yeah, this is a classic media trope. Where it's like, this is why I made the thing, music is something that is never affected by emotions. Yeah, playing music is one thing, and also listening to music, it's part of it is about emotional resonance, Way else some people do play music, it's a way of communication, and those things are emotional.
Yeah.
But when they turn around and like, this technology is utterly perfect, except for those. Hang on, was this created by David Gage? He's talking about emotions.
Oh, David Cage?
David Cage, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I always think of Nazis, David Cage. And I always think of David Gage.
Right. Yeah, just the presupposition, I suppose.
He did make Detroit become human.
Yep. Detroit become human.
Detroit become human.
Because it is 90% tropes. He's... I realized recently, not to go on too much of a tangent, kind of related, but he obviously watched the Will Smith I, Robot movie and took that plot and gave it to Clancy Brown's character wholesale. He has changed not a single detail of that backstory.
I haven't watched the Will Smith...
Self-driving car, Will Smith or Clancy Brown, take your pick, is driving along with his young son. I think they're both sons in both versions. Yeah, and the car, because, it's this cold, unfeeling AI, it chooses to kill the kid instead, because protecting a police officer is someone with more value to society, which makes me want to smash my head into a wall every time I hear this bullshit. Because I
read iRobot years ago. I don't recall that being in the book.
No, it has nothing other than Susan Calvin or whatever her name is being in the movie. That's about it. But yes, how AI, self-driving cars work is not about who's more important. It's about trajectory. So if you are about to get hit from the side, on the driver's side, obviously the statistics are in the passenger's favor. So the car is basically just maneuvering to avoid this collision. It's not about, who is more, in a Malthusian sense, useful to society? Why would you program an AI to do that? Well, actually, I can think of a lot of people who would do that, but...
Capitalists?
Generally speaking, yes, that's not how you would... do this.
No. It's almost like people who write fiction about AI have no concept about AI.
And this is why I'm currently writing... God damn it. I think I was talking to you, I was going through all my synopses. I think I got about 4 or 5 stories about artificial intelligences, including Voyager 3, a hypothetical third probe, and also a smart home that protects a family from a zombie plague.
That's Vega's great-granddaddy, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, exactly. There you go. All tied in. I'm technically still writing Star Trek fanfiction.
But, aside crashing us with an automated car back into RoboCop, this scene only exists to set up the conceit that the reason why we have to turn Alex Murphy into an emotionless zombie is because the system won't work with emotions. It
drives me nuts that people conflate everything with emotions, that there is no sentiment, there is no reason, there is no opinion or perspective. There is so much beyond emotion, but people tend to chalk up everything to just that because they've never had to consider, what am I actually feeling? What am I actually experiencing? What am I just thinking? Which is something I've had to do my whole life.
I think it just, even in the context of this movie, I think it just does not work. And I think this is what pissed me off. It's just, with all the shit that's going on in this movie at this point that they're still trying to set up. And none of it's cohesively coming together.
Again, your first 5 minutes told one story, and then your next 5 minutes told another. So we're almost up to minute 20. So that is 4 different bloody plots that we've been told to think about.
And we've spent, what, maybe 3 minutes with Alex Murphy?
Yeah.
And we're 19 minutes into this movie?
Yeah.
We've spent more time with our movie's antagonist, Raymond...
Sellers.
Yeah, evil Batman.
Evil Batman, yeah.
Evil Bruce Wayne, than we have done with Rick Flag. Shit.
Yeah.
Why, movie? Why?
I'm looking at the giant screen behind the other Doctor, and it says dopamine receptor regulation. And then later on, another Doctor's like, oh, he's norepinephrine. That's hard to say. Norepinephrine is too high, too low, whatever it is. But, the more I've done research into the brain, that is just one element. So you could have high dopamine, but it really depends on what's going on in that cocktail as well and what you're responding to. And so just dopamine in and of itself doesn't tell us much.
There's no such thing, essentially, as literally a standard brain. There's no baseline brain. Every single piece of technology, if this was to be true, would have to be calibrated to that brain. This is not plug and play, and I don't care if I'm banging the table.
No, it's for emphasis. It's great.
I put the emphasis on the wrong syllables.
That is a joke my uncle has been saying forever. And also he used to call me caught any fish, and I was like, what does that mean? I was too young to know. And then I'm about 19, and I stopped for a second and go, hang on. Oh, Courtney.
What a prick.
You prick, yeah. Uncle jokes. But yeah, it would be interesting, and I'm quite confident there will come a point in the future where we will have our own personal AIs, maybe in our phones, that will know our psychology and neurology in ways that we can't even comprehend. That's the profoundly exciting thing that I love to think about a lot, is we don't understand our own brains, but the more we learn about artificial intelligence, the more we understand how consciousness works in ourselves. And
could you imagine a smartphone that has a detection for a triggering event? So someone with autism, an extremely bad case of autism, they could detect when someone is having a meltdown or something, or the triggers that could cause a meltdown, and alert somebody.
Yeah, so if someone with autism is being brought into an environment where the light is above a certain whatever, or
the frequency of a sound or volume of a sound.
It's a frequency and also volume, and so the AI would learn, okay, this particular individual is sensitive to these, so it would send off an alert to their carer or to anyone around, this is not a good environment, remove me from this place. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm really excited about. Technology and disability tends to get overlooked, but I think that's where these innovations will have the most effect.
I think in fiction, the disability is always something visibly physical, like missing hands.
Yes, and that's what I was thinking about in this scene, is you see this clinic, everyone around is missing a limb. And
shit, I'm just having flashbacks to Bloodshot.
Yep.
Fuck.
You made me watch that. I will never forgive you.
You'll never forgive me.
Yeah. But it would be really nice. I mean, it is more complicated to convey, but it would be nice if you had, people with hearing aids or some things clipped to their heads, Geordie LaForge Vice or whatever it is, but just conveying there are other disabilities and there's other ways. Like, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, and I think about, if there's a way to artificially transfuse myself with new mitochondria, or is there a way that I could stimulate my nervous system without doing it myself, that sort of stuff.
Nanobots.
Nanobots, man. That's the future.
Nanobot technology that's used to, stimulate the things that are not being receptive. Okay, nanobots aren't visually, they aren't visual. So
that's the problem I'm noticing a lot with any story about robots, and I am encountering that too. At least I have the advantage that my stories are novels, so it's all written down. But yeah, you have this issue of, say for example, why does the robot have to physically interact with a computer screen, or why do they have to? They don't. Some shows I'm noticing now, they convey the fact that, oh well, we can't have these AI with direct internet access, or they can't be too powerful, essentially. So that makes sense.
We can't have an Ultron.
Yeah, we don't want an Ultron situation. This is how you get an Ultron. So, ironically, as the technology advances, we are actually seeing robots that are being deliberately hampered, that are deliberately old school, because if they had this vast intelligence and this infinite access to the internet, that's a monster you got on your hands.
Well, we do get this in later minutes of gaslighting, is that, RoboCop, when he's first unveiled, he has this access to the police database, and then he picks out of the crowd a guy who's on parole, or he's skipped parole or something, or he's suspected of murder. And it begs that question: if you're suspected of murder, why are you turning up to a cop festival?
I know. That's the last place they'd think to look, and I will make that joke again when we get to that minute. I don't give a fuck.
Oh, yeah. We will. We definitely will.
Oh, we will.
It's okay. It's going to be a year from now, and everyone will have forgotten because, fuck, this movie takes too long to get to a point.
So, my one costume note is the other Doctor. She has this sort of double stand collar thing going on. It's quite interesting. 16 seconds or so.
I completely missed that. I'm going to have a quick look.
Yeah, so she's got this blue shirt, but then there's a white collar underneath, and I don't think they're separate garments. I do think that's all in one. Again, it's just this nice additional touch. So in the last episode I mentioned that Norton, not Morton, his white lab coat has a bit of texture to it. I don't think the woman's does, but yeah, she's got this double collar.
Yeah, that looks like a box standard... literally still folded. It's still got the creases from being folded in a bag lab coat. I'm not joking. You can see the folds.
No, it's just the material that will do that. Yeah, no, they did custom make that, because if you look, it does have this round collar or collarless look. So in a subtle way, they have done something quite unique with that.
I do like that collar though. That is a pretty nice collar in the shirt.
Yeah, I think they've done well to dress these characters in a way that implies it's a little ahead of where we are now without going over the top. Because I think, especially in the early 2000s, science fiction, futuristic stuff would go way over the top. I mean, okay, so there was Gattaca, which I think is amazing and still stands up today. Fantastic costume work.
I haven't watched that in a while.
It's really good.
Great film, though.
Yes, and the art direction across the board is stunning, and I think it looks as relevant now as ever. But, things like Aeon Flux, ironically, the live-action adaptation looks more dated than the animated series.
I own a copy of both of them.
You monster.
Yeah. Aeon Flux, the live action, is a guilty pleasure of mine because it is so bad.
I mean, it is dumb
kind of
fun. Yeah, it is good dumb fun. It's just...
And Charlize Theron is just having the fucking time of her life.
Just complete bullshit.
Yeah, I can't hate it.
It's interesting that we get the same actors going for genre, that Keanu Reeves, Charlize Theron, could name all sorts of, I guess, our boy here, RoboCop, he has been in quite a few science fiction things, and I wonder why. Is it getting typecast, or are they genuinely more interested in that kind of storytelling?
It's probably a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B, to get the Simpsons reference in there.
A little bit of column meanie.
Yeah, typecasting is a thing, but some people do genuinely just gravitate to a genre. And let's face it, if someone's got an acting style and they're good at it, I feel bad about constantly calling this Alex Murphy Rick Flag, because I just don't see a distinction. I really should go and watch Carbon.
Altered Carbon season 1, fantastic.
Just so I can look at this guy and go, okay, he can actually act.
Throughout my day, I will be periodically tempted to just send you a photo of his face, just doing that blank, expressionless. I haven't done it yet. I have held myself back, or I forgot.
So for the listeners, I have gone through and chopped up every single minute of the 2014, RoboCop, and there's just minutes where it's just that blank, expressionless face of Rick Flag as RoboCop, and this is before he has his emotions taken away, and they're going, wow.
Yeah.
That's just sad.
Bloody, oh my god, I am forgetting the actor's name.
I was just about to say, it's Joel
Kinnaman. Joel Kinnaman. He's another one where he has done mostly genre stuff and he seems to come back to science fiction over and over again. Yeah, there might be some personal interest, but it could just be, well, he looks like a superhero, so.
Yeah, he's a fit white guy with brown hair. He can be pretty much any superhero. It's funny how the cross-contamination between the characters are starting to get between DC and Marvel now. It wouldn't surprise me if Marvel tries to tab him for a property at some point.
I'm amazed that Tom Hardy has played my favorite characters from both Marvel and DC. Like, what are the odds? Maybe I just keep going for the beefy boys, I guess. Shall we wrap up the episode?
I think we shall. Would you like to tell the viewers where to find you?
You can find me on traviandesigns.com, Travan. You can find me on Alien Prequels by Minute on Facebook, and go on over to the Chronologically Speaking podcast feed, because that's where, listen to Chronologically Speaking, and that's the Tron Movies by Minute podcast, but soon there'll also be Animatronic, which is Duncan and I reviewing Tron Uprising, the very underrated series, and then once we finish that, I've already recorded some episodes of Legacy Minute, and if you want access to those right now, you can go over to patreon.com/TravianDesigns.
I personally have started listening to Covenant by Minute. I'm up to minute 3.
I've got to upload the first minute publicly after I hang up. Yeah.
See, this is why you need to become a Patreon of Travian Design, so you can get all those goodies before anyone else.
Yeah. And I got to get my butt onto Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah. You're guesting or creating every other by minute podcast on the planet, so you gotta pace yourself.
Oh yeah, sorry, forgot. Yeah, there's almost famous minutes, which is Eric Nash's podcast. So I'll be doing some minutes on that. The airplane scene.
I haven't seen Almost Famous since he was in the cinemas. I enjoyed that film.
It's a cute movie. It is. It's wholesome.
It's a fun film.
Yeah.
I guess you can find me on Fandom Crossing. Just look at the Googles, the YouTubes, and all that type of stuff. More importantly, you can find this podcast and many more, including Kung Pao Into the Minute. We just recently had some person called Courtney Colson guest hosting on it. You can find it on Simplecast. What's the other ones? I've forgotten. Google.
Yeah.
Apple, Spotify?
All the ones.
All the things, do all those, click like, share, subscribe, all the stuff, and if you would be ever so kind, please rate and review us, that'd be fine, just share and enjoy, and I guess that's it. See you next week.
Robocock, whoops, I got it wrong.
Would you like to do a take 2, or?
I'll do
just
that,
really
yeah.
edit this in?
Robocock.